Just to start off with, I'd like to say that this is a scripted video, and so if you want to quit the waffling and just read what I have to say, then I'll be linking the script in a comment or in the description. Now, before I get started, it should be stated that it will be most relevant to people who have already built up a strong basis to tackle LREs and are now wondering how they should continue to develop their roster. It might also convince you to change your minds depending on what course of action you've set on. In a nutshell, it's the classic LRE question of should you build a wide roster of many relatively weak characters or a tall roster of few relatively strong characters. My personal view falls very strongly on the side of building a tall roster, but that is not without at least one caveat from my personal experience. The exception that comes to my mind was during Aonishi's third and final LRE run, a point in my development where I simply did not have enough time to farm the shards necessary to get characters to Legendary and, as a result of that, push deep into all the LRE tracks. The only viable option to me at the time was to build a wide roster to try and meet as many requirements as I could as efficiently as possible per battle, but even then it was a close call when it came to unlocking him, and I took a couple of months of building characters dedicated solely to the unlock. I had laid the groundwork necessary to unlock him during the second run. Despite only unlocking 6 out of 15 chests, what I did allowed me to beat all of the requirements per battle, up to and including Battle 8 in every track in the third run. Otherwise, I would never have been able to do what I did with the limited tokens available if I'd only started in the third run. And this is the main point of what I'll be talking about. As a more advanced player, you do yourself a disservice by operating in this fashion, as I did for, I'd have to say, an excessive length of time, especially if you ever want to have a chance to unlock a legendary character in their first event. So, why have I decided to talk about this? Well, there has been a lot of hubbub around the difficulty of Dante's LRE, especially with regards to unlocking him in the first run, and it is not without reason. I think, however, that a lot of people are going down a blind alley when seeing their reasoning for this dissatisfaction, and they've been led astray potentially when it comes to deciding how best to tackle these events. It has horrible requirements with bad character options and limited options for multiple simultaneous completions of battle requirements, and what is one to do? Well, in my opinion, you should just ignore the fuckers, and I'll get into more detail on that later, but first, some fundamentals, so let's consider what it takes to unlock a character via an LRE. The maximum possible score over the entirety of an LRE is 21,000, and that is split evenly over 3 tracks. This totals to 7,000 points available per track being Alpha, Beta, or Gamma. In order to unlock a character during the first event, what you'll need is to score 12,500 points, in addition to completing the chain of 10 missions that accompany the LRE. If you're free to play, 68 LRE tokens will be available to you over the entire run of one leg of the event. Dividing this into 12,500 points, you come to a figure of 184 points required to be gained per LRE token used. To date, the most points ever available for beating a single one of the requirements for an LRE has been, I believe, 130 points. It may have been 140 points, I'm not quite sure on that, but I didn't check every single one. But anyway, the upshot of this is that it is impossible to unlock a character on the first event by beating a single requirement at a time. You must fully clear battles and or complete multiple requirements per token used. As time wears on, it seems perhaps due to the additions of Tier 13 and 14 battles to LREs, Snowprint has become more determined to increase the difficulty of completing multiple requirements simultaneously per battle, or, where they can be completed simultaneously, this can only be achieved by creating teams that are undermanned, inappropriate for Horde-type battles, or both. Needing to make a team out of Malgan-Ra, Aonishi, and Asmodai to have a shot at beating every requirement in the Gamma track of the Patermines LRE in 2 tickets per battle is a prime example of this. All of this is to say that if you don't want to be stuck going nowhere fast or levelling up useless niche characters you won't be using anywhere else, your emphasis should be on clearing as high through the tiers of battles as possible, as opposed to trying to spread yourself too thin, trying to meet each and every requirement and forcing extremely user-unfriendly requirement combos. As I've said in my LRE guide, it is pointless to maximise token efficiency if you can't even get past Battle 6 in any of the tracks. I've already mentioned that there are 7,000 points available per track in LREs. Of this, simply clearing battles without reaching any requirements will net you a total of 125 points per battle on average, And by clearing, I mean killing all the enemies in a single attempt, not just being allowed to progress past a battle by dint of killing the required number of enemies over several attempts, and losing every time. To reach your target of averaging 184 points per battle, you only need to add 60 points per battle from requirements on top of this. Of course, things are not so simple. For a start, assuming you don't lose any battles, you'll only be able to get the bonus points for clearing a battle a maximum of 42 times per LRE, assuming that you have teams capable of beating Battle 14 in every track, which might be a long shot. That leaves a total of 26 battles in your first run, where you'll have to maintain your average points per token above that 184 point threshold for a chance to get the unlock the first time around. And that is maintaining that threshold, above that threshold, without the bonus points from beating battles. Of course, if you have blasted up through the battles using a powerful team that does not necessarily reach a huge number of requirements simultaneously, you'll often find it quite easy to pick up whatever points you need in the early stages of the LRE, where it is easy to use undermanned teams and poor characters that have not been leveled up significantly to meet unusual requirement combinations, which saves you from having to funnel excessive resources into useless shite. One of my main reasons for making this video is the number of times I've already seen people talking about what they're going to be upgrading to beat the Deep Strike, Terminator or Chain damage requirements of Dante's LRE, and I simply can't argue the case of each of them individually as to why this may not be the best idea. I want this video to simply be a reference to guide people to instead. That doesn't just go for Dante's event, but any future LREs that have similar levels of difficulty and mutual exclusivity of requirements. This is an issue that I take with the video presentations of people such as DB Preacher, the Does X character do anything in LREs ones, and Nandi on LREs. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that the information they provide on LREs is valuable, but I think there should be more emphasis on contextualizing the information from the video creator community. Well, here I am, like the saviour nobody asked for what it's worth, to do just that. The context I refer to being that meeting requirements does not necessarily make a character worth investing in. It is an important component, but certainly not the only one. Again, I don't want to shit on these guys because Nandi has what I would call in my obnoxious manner, the correct view on this topic now. And obviously I can't fault DB Preacher for not going into as autistically obsessive a holistic consideration as I do in his videos, because that's not the purpose of them. I just see people placing far too much importance on unimportant things, and I imagine that the, frankly, shit-tier, year-plus outdated information that is constantly regurgitated on thoughtless cesspits like Reddit is fueled in part by this lack of context given from old videos that unfortunately have already done their damage, and due to the nature of Reddit still having effects on how people think. Another reason why I'm not interested in swaying individual opinions on this topic in places like Reddit is because the downvote system means that you'll never be taken seriously, or even seen for that matter, if you don't partake in the ritual fellation of some poor sap who's taken Angrax to diamond level because he heckin' carries LREs, even though he patently does not. Anyway, the Reddit thing is a rant for a different day, so back to the main topic, if you can even remember what I was talking about at this point. If you think of clearing a battle as a requirement worth 125 points that you can reach with literally any character that you want outside of whatever overarching faction, whether that be Imperial Chaos, Xenos, or anything but one minor faction is banned for a track, and you realise it's a gold mine that's ripe for the plundering. The only thing you need to figure out is which characters are good for LREs and meet common LRE requirements and build those up, and often it's not a great many that are necessary. In terms of Dante's event, simply having Snotflogger, Boss Golgorts, Ravas, Aleph and Tan upgraded high will carry you extremely far toward the unlock, and they're all reliably useful LRE characters that have great utility in many other game modes besides LREs. Outside of getting Matineo up to Gold 1, I made no other preparations for this event, as I already had all these characters built for raids, almost all of them for my mech team. Another aside, a brief one this time, if you want your raid characters to be highly LRE viable, build a mech team. So, I'd much rather have these solid characters built as a safe long-term investment than be endlessly trying to level up whatever happens to be the flavour of the minute. There are simply too many characters in Tacticus for this nonsense. You know what I upgraded for the Terminator requirement? Nothing, I'm ignoring the fucker. Same goes for Chain and Rapid Assault. Nicodemus can go away, he is far too redundant with Isabella. Deep Strike, no Chaos. Okay, pretend for a moment that I'm not the disembodied voice of a Victorian wanker. Now, look me in the eyes and tell me that you're going to be upgrading the Death Leaper, Aryak and Ithana for that. Please. There are castrati less impotent than those wastes of space. Any track that lacks healing or endless summons or includes only the anemic self-heals of characters such as Toph or the Death Leaper or the underwhelming pseudo-healing of Thalmachus is dead in the water without the ability to rapidly and continually overpower the enemy with the troops you have available. Now, granted, the flame track in Khan's LRE was a bitch, being against the Tyranids, but I saw people with maxed out, full diamond free teams barely making it through the final battle. Compare that to what Maladus and Rotbone are capable of on their own, and the difference in necessary investment couldn't be clearer for anyone even mildly interested in streamlining their resource expenditure. Expanding on this point a little further, a question I see come up a lot is, which third character should I upgrade to use with Maladus and Rotbone, or maybe Aleph and Ravas? And my answer to that is none of them. If you have Rotbone and Maladus, you have that track covered very well. So well, in fact, that whatever hypothetical third character you may add will have comparatively little effect on the outcome of the battle. In that case, you'll almost certainly be able to put your resources to better use elsewhere in preparation for an event. But anyway, a lot of these niche requirements can only be tackled alone, and so will not bring you anywhere close to that necessary 184 point per token average. Obsessing over having a team for Terminator only, Deep Strike only, Chain only, etc. is just setting yourself up to fail. These categories should be afterthoughts when you've earned a comfortably high average point score per token, and you need to squeeze a bit of juice out of your last few tokens, and definitely not a primary consideration. Put it this way, if there is a non-zero probability of you unlocking Dante first time, it will almost never be necessary for you to build anything to beat any of these tracks to get there. They are a luxury, something to be tackled in the first run only by those with the facility to pay for additional tokens, or only if you've literally exhausted every superior option to spend tokens on. If this is the case and you've pushed as high up in each track as you should be aiming to do, you will only have a limited number of tokens remaining, and you can probably do better than this in terms of combining requirements, but I understand that that may still be a stretch depending on how strong your roster is. Even if you do have to fight under these restrictions, the first few battles of an LRE track are so easy that no building of characters is required for them at all, unless all the available characters you have are below Iron or maybe Bronze level. By all means build for them, but only for the sake of the second or third run when you have set yourself up to be able to tackle requirements one at a time with no worries about token efficiency. And for the love of all that's holy, don't go overboard with it. Now you need 18,500 points to blue star a character by the end of the third run of an LRE. Then what? Every point that you earn after that goes towards earning a few crates containing a pittance of gold and some legendary badges and orbs. A nice bonus? Sure. Worth building Aryak to diamond for? Yeah, I don't need to answer that. Don't feel the need to get dragged into dick measuring contests over your event score. Any reward after blue starring a character is not worth being built for specifically. I often get these rewards by virtue of having an inherently strong roster, but I would never ever build anything specifically to get points past that 18,500 mark. It just simply is not worth it. I'm going to show my current progress after spending 37 tokens, 38 now, along with my roster through Dante's LRE to hopefully persuade you of the virtue of building tall. So I'll just be looking at that now. So, Gamma. So in addition to the core characters I previously mentioned, I did use my D3 Khan for the final 4 battles of the Gamma track alongside Ravas and Aleph. I could maybe have beaten Gamma 11 with Snotflogger as my main character as well, but I didn't want to chance it. Ravas and Aleph alone may well have been able to clear up to and including Battle 13, and making Khan nearly redundant for those who may be thinking that I was at a massive advantage for having him at D3. But that's not that I wouldn't recommend building Khan anyway, as he is a fantastic character. Aside from that, there aren't many caveats to add to my narrative of the importance of building up key characters as the foundation for your LRE success. giving yourself the freedom to then potentially build up one or two characters that may be pivotal for a given event, such as I did by getting Matineo to G1 here. So in the Alpha track, Tan and Matineo carried me to Battle 12 in Alpha, more or less by themselves. I had Silver 2 Sarquel, Silver 1 Varro, and Iron 2 Certus. Basically, they were useless. And as for Beta, well, the Orcs have been rampaging their way through it, and they're showing no signs of slowing down anytime soon, but when they do, I will add Tan, Actus, and Shosil, three of my core LRE characters, in with them to carry them through the final battle or two, or three. And just to have a look at my roster, I'm aware that I have a very powerful roster that puts me very high up in the player base in terms of my combined power score, but whether you have these core characters at Bronze 3 or Diamond 3, they will always be punching far above their weight compared to other characters of similar level, and will almost certainly give you the best return on investment when it comes to improving your LRE performance as a whole. Once again, for specific LREs, characters like Matineo in Dante's event may also be an attractive option. You just have to be more cautious over whether you're making a good decision when upgrading characters like this, if the investment is less likely to carry over into other LREs/areas of the game, because of course Tacticus is not just LREs. Another good thing about having these core LRE characters built so far is that it gives you more freedom to focus on your raid team or teams for other high-level modes, as once you start building these supposedly non-LRE characters, you'll often find that they can get you far in LRE tracks following requirements that are relevant to them just by virtue of being over-leveled. For example, I wasn't worried about building Nicodemus for Dante's chain track, for example, because I knew that my D2 Ragnar on his own can get me as far as I'll ever need to go in the first event there. I have to stress that my dismissal of Nicodemus is specific to me and my roster, and you may be served well by leveling him up yourself, which is why I can only give fairly woolly guidelines, rather than go into super specific detail over exactly which characters should be built. Preparing for LREs is quite a personal question, but as long as you have an understanding of what sort of characters to build and how and when to build them, you should be okay. I think a good video to watch on this topic is one by Draupnir, entitled Draupnir Talks LRE Characters. Now, the considerations of this video, they really are endgame, but I think of what I've done with my roster in terms of building for LRE so that I can stop building for them as soon as possible, and therefore give myself more freedom to then do whatever I want with my roster without having to worry about future events. It's a cure to FOMO, if you will. Now, if you build smartly and efficiently, you can develop teams for multiple other game modes along with your LRE team, and even lay the groundwork for strong raid teams. So of my 16 top characters here in terms of power rating, excluding Eldrion, whose importance has been massively reduced to me by his nerf, I would say that 14 of them are good for LREs, and of those 14, I built only 3 specifically for LREs. And those are Maladus, Rotbone, and Isabella. Even then, these 3 are such good characters that I would by no means consider building them up to be a waste outside of LREs, even if they're not raid viable. Survival, Arena, Onslaught, Character Quests, Guild Wars, and Campaigns are all places where they shine as well. You may not be able to get a character to Blue Star with these core characters alone due to the increasing presence of niche tracks in LREs, but I can pretty much guarantee that you'll never miss an unlock with them once they're built past a certain point, barring any major shifts in how LREs are designed. Whether you want to build any other characters or not is then up to you, which I can say from my own personal experience is quite liberating, and why I recommend you also free yourself from the purgatory of going wide as soon as you can, at least if you are anywhere near as FOMO affected as I am.